Okay, so I'm joined by Grandmaster Timur Gareyev, and as you know, if you've been watching the YouTube channel, you saw that on June 25th, we're hosting Timur for a blindfold camp and Simul, and we wanted to give you a little bit more information about that and maybe even a sneak preview of what you might see in the camp and what you might see in the Simul. So, first of all, as you may know, in the history of blindfold chess, there have been players going back probably 1,500 years have been playing blindfold chess, everything from horseback blindfold chess all the way through the Renaissance when it was considered almost mystical, to the 1700s with strong players like Philidor, to the 1800s when you had Paul Morphy, who was taking on all comers in a cafe in Paris, to 1900s with the rise of Alexander Alvikin, and later on the feats of Koltanowski. But leaving all of those great players in his wake is Timur Gareyev, who in Las Vegas in December of 2016 set the new record with a simultaneous exhibition. Timur, can you tell us a little bit about who you played, how many people you played, how that simul went?
So I faced 48 players, and I played the opposition was about 1700 average level. So basically, it included the players who were beginners, under 1,000 level. Uh, not too many of those, just a couple, and players of several players over 2,000 level. So that kind of balanced it out at the average of about 1,700.
Yeah, for our event, the average rating looks to be about the same, about 1,700. So we're similar there. Although, what we're going to do on Sunday, June 25th, is stepping it up several notches in difficulty because Timur is going to have to play with a teammate. So as you know, Warren Harper is going to play with Timur. They're going to alternate moves on a board, and that means both players have to keep both positions in their head at all times. And as if that weren't hard enough, they're both going to play with a clock. So a clock blindfold simul, a clock blindfold tandem simul. I've done a little bit of looking and I couldn't really find such a thing. Is this a first?
That might be the first one, but I don't think if you got the clocks figured out well. Actually, it is a kind of a new criteria in the whole experience, and I think it makes up for a more exciting matchup as as the players have kind of get to take their time to play out the moves, and also when it comes down to hopefully towards the end, that's when the time pressure will kick in, and not much earlier than that, because without actually had several matches that I kind of um, I had a little bit of stress playing those playing those games because I just couldn't I didn't calculate the time that I would need as well. But I basically just made it just right on time. So maybe I actually had really good timing for that. Where I was finishing up the games as I was getting very close, very close. Because I would be sad to just lose a bunch of games on time,
Well,
right?
it is, and you also have to factor in the fact that you're going to be losing time relaying moves back and forth. I saw
Yeah.
your banter blitz with Jan Gustafsson, and you were playing a blindfold blitz game, and you were relaying your moves to Jan, and you got below 30 seconds, and Jan asked, "Do you want to take your blindfold off and play?" And you said, "No, let's just play it out." And you probably made another 15 moves in that 30 seconds, just instantly snapping off moves and him instantly playing them. It was something to see.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a lot of fun when it comes down to the time crunch and being able to pull it off and kind of figure out those situations changing in your mind, especially having two players doing that. So I don't know if this is on top of your mind as to what the time control we're going to be using, Lucas.
Well, you gave me some notes on this. I think you said 2.5 hours on your clock and an hour and a half on your opponent's clock. And I think you said a 30-second increment for you and Warren and a 15-second increment for them, something of that nature.
Yeah, I'm thinking, so basically we'll get 2.5 hours. To give you an idea, for the last match I played, and the players are probably, well, not quite that strong, but maybe 1300 average rating. I played seven players, and I had an hour and I had an hour. I had 1 hour plus 1 minute increment, and my opponents had 30 minutes with no increment. So that actually came down pretty close. I had players actually weren't used to here. I played the Simul in Greece, and the players weren't quite used to the rapid time control. For the event in Houston, I definitely for two of us playing 9 players, having 2.5 hours should be good enough plus 1 minute increment for relaying. But from my experience, work playing in tandem or even three-way, especially this is we're doing with a certain historic value, and for the sake of the process, we want to have enough time to dedicate and give each other to play through it. And I know this is a new experience for Warren, so we'll see how comfortable he's going to be playing through it. Because when we played together with Mark Lang, that event, and I'll let you see that documentary online. I don't know if it indicates the amount of time that we spent on the Simul, but I think it was like 5.5 hours that we played on
I
with no
don't,
clock.
I don't think it indicates, but I'll put a link to that documentary down in the comments below. Speaking of that simul, with you and Mark, you rotated around board by board, did you not? So you went from like board one to board two to board three? And
Yeah, board one, board two, board three, and now here, actually, that is an interesting concept, having the clocks where we jump from one to the next, and then uh, between myself and Warren, I think we're gonna have to kind of go like that. That would be truly exciting.
yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little sign to put on each board, one side that says Timur and one side says Warren, so that I keep track of whose move it is, and I'll just flip it over when one of you makes a move. And I think I'll call it out to you so that you guys can keep track of it that way. So I'll say like Timur board four, and then I'll call out their move, so that you'll know that it's your response. But you're also going to have to keep in mind, and I know this is something Warren talked about, is you have to follow each other's plan. So not only do you have to visualize the board and visualize what you would do, but you also have to think how you would play in tandem or as a team with your partner. And that's an interesting one. Are you and Warren doing some strategy with regard to that?
Yeah, we definitely gotta work out the idea. We just basically discussed the opening preparation as, as to the system that we want to use. Because a lot of it we can decide ahead of time, and then could also go deeper and consider different systems that we're going to use. And I have quite a bit of experience, and I shared that with Warren as to some of the systems that work well. As a bit of a hint, from my experience playing, some of the closed positions come out pretty tough. Um,
Well, one
you
thing
know,
Warren said is, he said, well, I'm going to rely on Timur. And I know Warren's a strong chess player, but you've prepared for blindfold chess doing exhibitions for, what, the past 4 or 5 years now? How long have you been at this?
yeah, it's been several years. So I think ultimately also the just how comfortable you are with the whole process, because you will mess up, you will forget certain situations. Some of the moves will come unexpected. Certain situations you'll face that could throw you off. With the experience, I think you handle much better.
And I don't mean to overhype this, but when we were at Super Nationals and they pulled up all the grandmasters who were there and all the chess champions who were there, Maurice actually called you up on the stage, and he said, "This guy does things that even other grandmasters shake our heads at." So I guess even among grandmaster chess, what you're doing is fairly rare.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of a mystery for I think for most chess players as to how that's possible. But the concept is or the ability, the some of the you can only find out by attempting and trying it out. So for our chess camp, um, or for visualization camp, I would like to have players try out the blindfold chess, and maybe considering the strength of our participants, I believe we have students up to 1800 level strength, right?
Yes, I think our strongest player is around 1900.
Yeah, so I think for a player of that strength, I would want him to try and uh, face as many as 2 or 3 players at the same time. See how.
Simultaneous.
But from my
Yeah.
experience, I have done that before. Actually, not with less of a purposeful mindset. Just wanted to try to see how they do, and I was surprised. There was a player of 1900 and a player of 2100 almost, over 2000 level. And one played really good blindfold chess. The other one just couldn't quite get it, couldn't quite figure it out. After a while, I was just like, oh, I lost, I give up.
The important thing about this, though, is everybody benefits to a certain extent training visualization. Even your players who are 600, 700, 800, they benefit from practicing these techniques. The ability to visualize a chessboard and calculate is crucial, obviously, for anybody's chess development. How much, in your work with players, how much of an improvement do people typically see by training their visualization extensively? What areas
Well,
does it impact?
I think if it's I think just the mindset of introducing blindfold chess techniques as for the training is critical. Whether you're reading a chess book and you're doing without the chessboard in front of you, I think that's kind of cool. Just a little bit along the way, like before, maybe plugging in your game on the computer
Mm-hmm.
and then trying to figure out the best ideas. Just maybe look through the score sheet with a fresh mindset and then just kind of visualize the game once again, or taking in notes. And so just having that ability to understand the game without having the physical board for your aid, and the practicing that a little bit at a time to just get comfortable, more and more comfortable with it. And ultimately, I think I think you just about should study and experience chess blindfolded. That's kind of how I starting to get myself to do it. Is even with, let's say, working with chess-based program, I I just remove the pieces from the board, so I just have an empty board, very small. I expand the notation and I just look through the notation and look through all the different variations, however confusing that could be.
Hmm. And I know that a lot of the popular chess websites like Chess, Chess24, and I think even ICC, they have the ability to play in blindfold mode. Is that one way that you've used to train?
I think it's more interesting too after you play so many games, and then you see that same opening, same ideas. I think it adds a little bit of a fresh insight as to your ability to kind of relate to the board. After a while, you get comfortable with playing blindfolded, and actually play other players who play blindfolded as well. I think it works out for an interesting experience. Yeah, I think this is a good time for us to, do a little bit of practice. This will be primarily simple exercises, but something I picked up as I looked through some of the materials available online for chess training, and I looked at a couple manuals or exercise routines, and there's one method that I like much better than the other. Now, looking through some of the games, imagine there's like a 7 move to like a dozen move game, and visualizing those, especially those would all be miniatures. I think that's good, but I think there's a superior method to that. Having having those initial moves played out and getting comfortable with playing out the notation, I think that's kind of interesting, like some kind of a scholar's mate or legal's mate or Paul Morphy, nice little masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
I think those could actually work out really good. I played a miniature, almost a miniature, against the strongest player at the world record event, a player with master level strength. I think it was a 18 move game
Hmm.
with a crushing attack. So looking through that game and just seeing some of the tactics and ideas, that should be a little complex. That's why those miniatures are so attractive. But even before then, I think having like Capablanca's trying to use Capablanca's method of starting with few and ending with many, I think might even be more appropriate for appreciating the essence of the chessboard and um, kind of taking in, becoming more conscious of the opportunities. As for players, so for example, at the super nationals, you see so many promising youngsters who are ready to take their chess to the next level. But as soon as they come in and you have the 5,000 you know participants in that hall, and they have that all that excitement, you sit down in the game and then you start shaking, and you start shooting the moves, boom, 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 and then at some point, all of a sudden you have the queen that's coming from a4 over to g4, and that just like a double attack or something, an opportunity that you may explore, and then you're not as conscious, you're not as comfortable with appreciating the whole board. You don't have that board awareness, and that
Interesting.
leads to maybe certain blunders or certain misevaluation or missed opportunities. And I think board awareness is one of the key qualities that you get to develop by practicing blindfold chess, and we could try out a couple of those ideas. So, for example,
Okay.
starting with a simpler one. So let's complete the following sequence: A7 to B8. So for once, I think it'll be good to uh, try to realize what color those squares are. So A7 and B8, those are connected squares via like a small tiny little diagonal piece, and obviously the squares of same color, so it'd be good to answer what would be those colors. So now we have A5 to D8. So this is certain sequences, right? So A7, B8, A5, D8, A3, F8, B1, H7. Okay, so here's a question here already, as I'm thinking about those trajectories, right? So once again, A7 to B8, A5 to D8, A3 to F8, B1 through H7. I say which one of those diagonals, and that's a bit of a hint, which one is not the color, not the same color, which one is a different color, uh, to kind of realize those diagonals, those mini diagonals, those shapes of, let's say a bishop move, for example. That's actually a good, useful way to relate to some of the visualization exercises to try to make it as tangible as you can, like create like a certain knowledge to it. Like a bishop move, it conveys a lot more than just h2 to g3. Like it's like a short bishop move, and that's actually how a lot of the blindfold chess can be chunk created. That's how you create the chunks into understanding the bigger picture. I think it's like conceptualizing at least the initial steps of it, which you can make greater and greater. So now coming back to the exercise: A7 to B8, A5 to D8, A3, F8, B1, H7. So how do we complete the following sequence? And the last sequence, part of the sequence would be E1, and then we got question, question. So what would be E1 over to, so all of this, as we kind of understood, is like a diagonal, like, kind of bishop moves, right? So now from E1, if we went diagonally, straight across the board, which square would we end up on? Because we go on the full spectrum of the squares that we can go. So from E1 going off towards the king side, which we are in already. So from E1, the square would be
H4.
H4, excellent. So boom, right there. Now, as I'm looking through exercise, I see more opportunities to expand on this. So, for example, A7, B8, A5, D8, A3, f8. As you can tell, all those are diagonals with the squares, the dark square bishop king, for example, right? Basically all those dark squares. Now b1 h7, something to notice. That would be the light squares. Now I'm thinking, was any one of those diagonals a long diagonal? So all of those were free, so they're short pieces, right? So I don't think any of those is actually a long diagonal. So which one would be the long diagonal that we're missing among the dark diagonals? I think there's one strip that we're missing. A7, B8, A5, D8, A3, F8, and there you go. We got A1,
H8.
A1 to A1 to H8, and then next one was B1 to H7 and E1 over to H4. Okay, so complete the following sequence. A7, this one is just a little bit trickier, which makes it interesting. A7, B8, H2, A5, D8, H4, A3, F8, H6. Now we got the question. D1, A4, and how do we complete the sequence? So once again, we have the sequences A7, B8, H2, A5, D8, H4, A3, over to F8, over to H6. And now we got D1, A4, and where does this kind of, as we can see, this kind of like a zigzag looking shape, where does it end up? So, so D1, A4, from A4 we go all the way down to
E8.
yeah, to E8, right? So, so that's kind of an interesting non-standard approach, right? But yeah, it's a good way to relate to the chessboard notation. Okay, so in the last one, complete the following sequence. I guess that would be similar. H1, well, actually this one is quite interesting. So H1 to F2 to D3, E1 to C2 to A3, and then C1, E2, where is the last square? So once again, from H1 over to F2 over to D3, from E1 over to C2 to A3. So those are separate sequences.
So
And
these
the
are
third,
knight moves.
yeah, as you can tell, these are knight moves, and they actually carry a certain trajectory where
Right.
from C1 we go to E2, and then we can continue over to the king side, which the square would be
G3.
yeah G3. So so that's there's some of the simpler exercises that we could use. Now it gets more and more interesting, and you can definitely get more creative with it to expand your visualization ability and better grasp of the chessboard. But these are some of the good examples of how to approach, and some of the exercises actually players can train and create on their own, and then we could actually experiment, try to do uh, uh, quite a few of those, and then see how the players would relate to playing a game blindfold, to see if they get more comfortable with it.
Well, that sounds very exciting, and I'm sure that our participants are going to benefit a lot from it. Now, I have had people ask from the first YouTube video, will we be recording and live streaming the camp? No. No. If you want Timur to come train you, then you'll have to work that out with him. Timur does appearances all over the world. He's in Germany now. I think before you come to Houston, you're going to be in Philadelphia. Is that right?
Before coming to Houston,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh actually visiting
Pittsburgh.
for the first time,
Okay.
but quite a few connections before then.
Right. Ask,
Always happy to come back to Texas though.
yeah, if you want to know where Timur is in the world, it kind of depends on the month. He is well traveled. So we're not going to be recording and streaming the camp portion of the June 25th event, but we will be live streaming the history of blindfold chess, and Warren and Timur are going to participate. And then we will be live streaming the Simul as well. Hopefully we'll arrange commentary for that, but failing that, we'll have a live camera with the boards that you can monitor in real time and follow the moves and try to play guess the move with our Grandmaster and FIDE Master, who will be competing against our 9 players. So, Timur, is there anything else you want to say about our event on June 25th?
Well, I'm truly excited about this opportunity, and I think there's a lot to experience with new, fresh mindset, and um, I definitely, most importantly, cheer for Warren to be able to step up his game and then just really direct his best towards being able to kind of relax into the process and be able to do his best, and we'll definitely work on trying to work out a team plan for handling the match. And I think for the players, for participants, audience, I think that's a great inspiration to be able uh, to see firsthand what it looks like, what it feels like, and for our participants of the camps, which those would be mostly the players who are participating in the event as well. I think that would be a great experience for them to try out something new, try out new learning techniques, and even if it's not going to be uh, 100% most challenging, or maybe a little bit too tough at first, or whatever the level of discomfort, which is natural to trying out something new. I think if they take away the lesson for shaping up their own, further developing their own training techniques. Because chess, you can only learn so much from your guru, from your GM, a mentor. You can only do so much with 1 hour a week chess training with the Magnus Carlsen. It's like the rest you have to do. You know, the rest of 15 hours or whatever, however much time you planning to dedicate to mastering your chess, blindfold chess, your uh, endgame techniques, openings, whatever that is you're trying to master. It's big chunks of time that you need to dedicate on a weekly and preferably on a daily basis. I think having 20 to 40 minutes of really high quality time where you stretch your imagination with playing chess, with studying, practicing chess every day is much better than waiting for the perfect time to invest that 2 or 3 hours that will get you to the next level. So I'm really excited about this opportunity, and
Well, I think the
I'm
people of
glad.
Houston should be excited as well to learn visualization from one of the world's best. And I think what you're saying has wide-ranging implications. When you talk about training visualization, and you talk about that high-quality practice, and you talk about working with chess books and picturing positions in between diagrams, what you see is that this training is not just about playing blindfold chess. This training is really about being a better student of the game and being a better player of the game, even in classical sighted chess. And so that's why I think our participants are very fortunate to be able to learn those techniques that you've cultivated over many years of trial and error, and learning from as many sources as you can possibly find to really distill those down into a lesson that they can learn quickly from. I think they're going to make rapid progress in that short time.
Uh, yeah, thank you, Lucas. I appreciate the idea and your support with making this happen.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So there are still a few spots left in the camp. The Simul is full, and only 9 players, and those spots are all claimed. There are a few spots remaining in the camp, so if you're interested, I'll put a comment down below showing how you can join us and join Timur on that day. And I know I'm looking forward to it. It should be very exciting.